We did it, Miskatonic Repository. Throughout this video series, we've talked about how to market your scenario, we've talked about straightforward strategies like offering discounts, and some less obvious ones like running your scenario at conventions or producing actual plays. But if you're here, it means you probably still want more. If we're to see those sales numbers go up even more, we're going to need to dig deep. We're going to need to get weird. Bring out the gimmicks! Greetings, Miskatonic Repository. Heinrich here. We are at the conclusion of our series on community content marketing techniques. As you've probably gathered, I'm pretty much out of ideas. But I couldn't help but come back for one more video to talk about a few more ways to make your sales numbers go up. In this video, we'll discuss linking your scenarios through series and themes, being a player, and gimmicks. Tricky, and they are context dependent. Your mileage may vary. You've been warned, but all that said, let's dive in. First up is linking your scenarios through series and themes. The idea here is that even if you're writing one-shots, that doesn't mean they have to exist in isolation. You can make them part of a series so that your scenarios are more easily identifiable and discoverable. This could mean tying your scenarios together so they can all be played as part of a mini or not so mini campaign. But your scenarios could also be united by setting, by pre-generated investigators, by imagery, or by style. Let's look at some examples. When I started writing scenarios, I knew I wanted to focus on the goo, the great old ones. I really wanted to dive into the lore and bring out the elements of these entities that most spoke to me as representing what they mean to us. So my three scenarios, Unremembered, Little Torches, and The Great Trap, all united by the fact that they take a single great old one and structure a scenario around it, be it Hastur or Yog-Sothoth or the King in Yellow. Another example is Heinrich's Call of Cthulhu Guide to Character Creation. Sure, it's the only Heinrich's Guide right now, but it won't be forever. Even as we speak, Heinrich's Guide to Carcosa is in layout, and whenever you see this video, it might even be out. If you like one Heinrich's Guide, my hope is that you'll seek out the other titles by the same name. Who knows what other Heinrich's Guides there might be in my future, just waiting. Other great examples include Zgrozy, a line of Call of Cthulhu scenarios and supplements created by Polish writer Marek Golonka. They feature such scenarios as The Shepherd of Moths and Lords by Birthright, and feature his unique perspective on the Call of Cthulhu mythos. And who doesn't immediately recognize the Grindhouse series by Alex Guillotte and Ian Christensen? They are up to 4 volumes now, as of recording, 4 volumes of double-feature, easy-to-run scenarios, all channeling a love for the 70s and 80s low-budget horror, splatter, and exploitation films. When you hear of scenarios with titles like Nazi Bikers Must Die or Isle of the Damned, you know you're looking at a Grindhouse scenario. There are lots of other potential ideas out there. Think of a series of scenarios linked by a single recurring pre-gen, or that all occur in the same haunted house but in different time periods, or maybe just in your hometown. That was, after all, one of the inspirations for the 2-volume series Hometown Horrors, organized by Evan Perlman. But alright, I think you get the idea here. Let's move on to being a player. You can think about this in all kinds of different ways, but it comes down to being someone known in the community by, for example, being a regular player on a podcast or actual play, or even running your own game. You're looking to harness your relationship with that actual play to tap into their audience of fans. There's nothing wrong with selling a scenario on the basis of doing something that other people enjoy, whether it is playing a character on a podcast or running one. So, leverage those Patreon and Discord communities. One example here has got to be Paul Fricker, one of the hosts of the podcast Good Friends of Jackson Elias. His scenarios are amazing and stand on their own, but if it weren't for the podcast, I wouldn't know just how big a deal he is or how excited I am when he comes out with a scenario. Other examples include the cast from Ain't Slate Nobody or the Old Ways podcast. Whenever any of the cast market anything, you know I'm waiting in line. So that takes us at long last to gimmicks. Now, I'm not trying to cast these in a bad light by calling them gimmicks. It's just that they can be hard to pull off, are usually effective one time, and the return you get is uncertain. It may also require folks to already be somewhat interested in your scenario to begin with. Let me give you a couple of examples. As folks on this channel may know, I did a video designer diary series walking through the drafting and creative thinking I did for the upcoming Heinrich's Guide to Carcosa. This video series, still ongoing, was and is a gimmick. I mean, I absolutely wanted to share what scenario design actually looks like, but let's be clear. A hopeful side benefit is giving my future audience a taste of what's coming up next. I then leveraged that gimmick into another gimmick, proofreading. I sent out a call over YouTube, Facebook, and Discord asking for folks to help proofread because, well, I couldn't bring myself to read through again the 80,000 words that make up the Carcosa Guide. I absolutely benefited from so many folks helping with the proofreading and catching mistakes I never would have. And everyone who participated gets mentioned in the credits and gets a discount on the book. But it was also a way of getting the community interested and more invested in my product, so that when it eventually comes out, they actually will use those discount codes they earned to buy it. There are lots of other examples of gimmicks. Maybe you give the community a chance to create characters in your scenario, or maybe even just name some of the characters. Maybe you host an event or a party around your scenario's themes. Maybe you drop a few pieces of art every few weeks, or you create a riddle that evolves as you get closer to your launch date. I think you're seeing already that a good gimmick needs to be about more than marketing. It needs to create a connection between you or your product and your audience. It can be just something fun, for sure, but if you take it a step further and allow someone to get to be a part of creating your product, they become invested. Not just through the time they spend, but also emotionally. Your success becomes their success, and that creates not only a customer or positive word of mouth, but a relationship. It's those relationships that really form the amazing community of the Miskatonic repository that we've all built, and that whatever marketing techniques you employ are going to be the foundation of your scenario's success. Well, there you have it. The end of our 4-video series on community content marketing. Although this is where I stop talking, this isn't where the conversation needs to end. Community content creators are constantly discovering new ways to attract positive attention to their products. So, listen to what you hear. It might just give you an idea for how to become the next big hit on the Miskatonic repository. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Until then, stay tuned for more.